Pokemon Scarlet and Violet games are far too easy when the player gets to choose whichever Pokemon they want to use for their journey, so I decided I would place the future of my team into a singular pack of Pokemon cards. I'll spare you the pain of watching me open the cards, but to summarize, we got a Chatot, Cottonee, Carvanha, Ekans, Colossal, Torracat, Shiftry, and Bramblegast. Out of these pulls, only Ekans, Colossal, Shiftry, and Bramblegast are usable throughout the main game. Torracat is not available until much later via the Indigo Disc DLC, so it's not useful to us at all. This didn't leave me with as many options as I would have hoped, so I'm including Bellibolt and Pawmot because they were the promo card and coin respectively. Our starter will also be Quaxly since our energy in the pack was water, so it just seems fair that we get to use him. Also in this challenge, I'm going to be loosely following Nuzlocke rules, which means no overleveling the next fight's Pokemon, no using items in battle, I have to use the first Pokemon I catch of each kind, and each Pokemon must be nicknamed. Maybe in the future I'll attempt this challenge where I have to box each Pokemon that faints, but for now I'm far too scared to attempt that. With all of that out of the way, it's time to jump into the actual game and get started with this challenge. Aw, kill it. I do not want a Squovid in my house. After dealing with our rodent infestation, first item on our agenda is to deal with the longest tutorial in all of Pokemon, which needless to say, I was not excited for. I think this guy is 100% for sure into our mom. Director Clavel comes to our house and hits on our mother before we are finally released into the new, low frame rate potato world of Paldea. Oh, time for the longest walk of my life. We finally select our starter Quaxly, which we give a completely unrelated nickname. Amazingly, Quaxly has an adamant nature, which is unbelievably good. We fought Nimona and beat her easily before beginning our walk to school. Some boring, uneventful things happen with Koraidon before meeting our new friend Arven. We finally exact our revenge on Squovit before finding our first new team member Palmy, which we nickname Muffin. I keep plugging away through the intro as my impatience starts to grow rapidly. Man, all these stairs are so stupid. I feel like Po from Kung Fu Panda. We get acquainted with our third mission path when Cassiopeia calls us and simply tells us to destroy Team Star for her. Immediately once we're able to, we head to Kitakami to get our next encounter Ekans, who we name Long John. I head over to a nearby area and catch a Seedot which I name Dink. I know, real original. After a bit of training, Dink evolves into Nuzleaf. Now it's finally time to take on our first gym leader Katie, the bug nerd. I quickly get hyped about the gym test. Oh goody, the olive roll. Probably one of the most stupid things you've ever had to do in any Pokemon game, ever. And finally, after some olive rolling, we begin the battle. Tell me why the lighting is so bad in this game, it makes Katie look like she has a permanent beard. I decided not to use Palmy for this battle because its stats are atrocious and I don't think I will need it. I lead with Long John to lower Nimble's attack with Intimidate, then use Glare to paralyze it. Switch back and forth to Ekans to keep lowering the Nimble's attack so I can freely set up workups with Quaxly. After getting to +5 attack, I become a wing attack merchant and take out Nimble and Tarantula easily. Katie then sends in her ace Teddiursa and terastallizes it. Still no match for wing attack, as it also goes down in one hit and we get our first badge out of the way easily. Immediately after, we head over to defeat the Stony Cliff Titan Cloth. Unfortunately, we suffer our first death in the fight against Mr. Krabs, but take him out nonetheless. After Cloth, we evolve Quaxly into Quaxwell, then meet our next encounters Bramblin and Roly-Coly, which I name Freak and Chip. I remember I can actually get one more team member, so I head to East Province Area 2 to catch Jabba the Tadbulb. Alright, Brassius, you are absolutely done, my friend. Next, we head to Artisan, where we challenge Brassius, the gym leader. Brassius leads with Petalil, and we choose Dink. The strategy consisted of me using Rollout to take out Petalil and Smoliv. I then switched to Ekans to match up against his Sudowoodo. We both terastallize our Pokemon, and after a few Poison Tails, Sudowoodo falls, and we claim our second badge. After the fight, we meet Hassel for the first time, and I had some pretty choice words for him. Why does this guy walk like he has a stick shoved so far up his ass that it's coming straight out his esophagus? Muffin evolves into Palmo, and it's time to take on the next Titan, Bombirdier. Look at Bombirdier, man. Look at the animations on him. Like, how is this the most high-valued media franchise of all time? And that's what we get. Now it's just shitting out rocks everywhere. Kind of ridiculous, honestly. Fight was quite uneventful as Arven and I have no issues whatsoever. I head back to Artisan to acquire Leafstone to evolve Dink into Shiftry before heading on to challenge Team Star's Dark Crew. A quick low sweep with Fruitcake takes out the Pawniard so that all that's left is the Starmobile. I use a couple of quick low sweeps to chip some damage before sending in Dink. After a few Leaf Blades, I switch to Muffin and finish off Giacomo and the Starmobile with an arm thrust. Afterwards, Chip evolves into Carkol and Ekans into Arbok. I then spend entirely too much time running around in order to evolve Freak and Muffin into their final forms. We are then surprised by Nimona and she challenges us to a battle. I completely forgot about this battle, so I ended up going over Iono's level cap. I get super sad, but then I remember that I make the rules and continue on anyways, and to be honest, the extra level wouldn't have made much of a difference in this fight regardless. After completing the painful gym test, she leads with Wattrel and we go with Freak. We set up a few layers of spikes before Freak gets low and we have to switch him out. I go with Chip and take out Wattrel with an ancient power. Next is Bellybolt, so I switch to Dink, anticipating a water gun, then proceed to take it out with a few leaf blades. Next up is Luxio, and I decide to keep Dink in to lower the Luxio to 1 HP before switching out to Muffin to take it out with a quick attack. Lastly, Iono sends out her ace Mismagius. I immediately switch into Long John and Mismagius tries to confuse us right away. Luckily, I prepared for this and gave Long John a Person Berry to cure the confusion. It was very short-lived, however, as I got confused again on the next turn because Mismagius was faster. Amazingly, I break through the confusion and use Toxic to badly poison the Mismagius. Now it's just a matter of switching between our remaining team members to stall out the poison, and it's not long before Mismagius faints and we claim our 3rd gym badge. I can now acquire a Thunderstone and evolve Jabba into Bellybolt. Next, we head straight to the Team Star Fire Crew to challenge Mela. She leads with Torkoal and we send in Chip. I would love to tell you that this battle was an entertaining masterpiece, but I'd be lying because Chip comes in and dummies both the Torkoal and the Starmobile with ancient power. That's 2 Team Star members down. Chip continues his dominating performance and we mow down Orthworm as well. Our next order of business is taking on the water gym leader Kofu. We first have to battle his apprentice Hugo, who I am not the biggest fan of. This guy's such a nerd, man. We should just clock him in the head and then talk to Kofu like we came here to do. Too bad he was a pushover loser. We can finally move on to our fight with Kofu. He leads with Veluza and we start with Freak to set up some spikes. I swap into Long John to get an Intimidate off and we take out Veluza with a few crunches. His next Pokemon is Wugtrio and we decide to swap back into Freak. Wugtrio can't really hurt us, so we chip it down with a few Mega Drains before switching it to Jabba to set up Reflect and take the Wugtrio out. Kofu sends in Crabominable and terastallizes as we switch to Dink. Kofu can't do anything significant to us, so we take out Crabominable with a few Leaf Blades and claim our 4th gym badge. After Kofu, we run straight over to Tag Tree Thicket where we face off against the Poison Leader Atticus. I'm a little nervous about this fight because we don't have many good answers to Atticus's Pokemon. I know pretty simple reasoning there. He leads with Skuntank and we start with Chip. I try to use Bulldoze to chip some damage away, but it ends up not doing very much at all. We get hit by a few Sucker Punches before I'm forced to swap out. I decide to switch back to Muffin to take out the Skuntank with a quick attack. Next up from Atticus is Revavroom. I chip away with a few low sweeps with Fruitcake before switching to Jabba. I tank a few Bulldozers, then take out Revavroom with Mudshot. Out next is Muck, and I make a big mistake here not switching Jabba out, so he gets defeated by a Sludge Wave unfortunately. I send Muffin in and decide I'm going to try and power through Muck with a bunch of digs. After, Atticus sends in the Starmobile and I switch back to Long John to lower its attack. It goes for Noxious Torque, which does pitiful damage to Long John, so I switch back to Chip to tank a spin out. The plan from now on is to keep switching back to Long John to lower the Revavroom's attack before we try to keep a team member in long enough to take it out. After a while, I keep Long John in long enough to whittle it down with Bulldoze, then finally switch out to Muffin. Muffin gets badly poisoned but doesn't want to disappoint me, so he expels it right away. After using a few digs, the Starmobile goes down and we've beaten our 3rd Team Star boss. Immediately after the fight, we can evolve both Chip and Fruitcake into their final forms. We mosey on over to Medali to challenge the normal gym leader Larry. He leads with Kamala and we start with Long John. We use a Poison Tail right away before being forced to swap out after Kamala uses Yawn. I switch to Jabba to set up Reflect before changing to Dink. I use a few Leaf Blades to take out the Kamala. Next is Larry's Dunsparce. I get it pretty low before getting hammered with a Hyper Drill and I'm forced to switch Dink out. I go back to Jabba in order to set up another Reflect. I switch back out into Freak so I can take Dunsparce out with a few Mega Drains. Last up is Larry's Staraptor, which he terastallizes into the normal type. Freak gets hit with a powerful Aerial Ace, so I pull him out to swap to Long John. I try to stay in long enough to poison Staraptor, but unfortunately Long John goes down to Facade. I send in Muffin and Terastallize in order to get rid of my fighting type. I use a few Brick Breaks and shortly the Staraptor is taken out and we claim the 5th badge. Immediately after the gym battle, Nimona challenges us to battle, but it was extremely easy, so I'll just skip right over it. Next up on the to-do list is the Ghost Gym in Montenevera. This gym is double battle, so we have to carefully select our strategy for this fight. Psych, this battle is such a pushover due to the fact that you get an attack boost after defeating defeating each of Rhyme's Pokemon as well as an Omni Boost for terastallizing. I still have absolutely no clue why Game Freak made this fight so easy, but whatever, 6th badge acquired. Our next order of business is fighting Great Tusk, and with Fruitcake on our side, this battle is a breeze as well. Subsequently, Nemona challenges us again before the 7th gym, and needless to say, this fight was just as easy as the last. I'm just going to say for the record before I start this is by far the worst gym challenge in the entire game, and probably the worst thing you ever have to do leading up to any gym in the entire Pokemon franchise. This is the stupidest thing I've ever done. After taking way too long to complete this ridiculous gym test, we finally get thrust into a battle against Tulip, the psychic gym leader. She leads with Farigiraf and we start with Long John. His whole purpose here is to set up Toxic Spike so all of Tulip's Pokemon will be poisoned on the switch. I swap to Jabba and take Crunch so that Farigiraf gets paralyzed with our static. Jabba can't really be hurt at all here, so I use the opportunity to set up Reflect. After a few turns, I take out Farigiraf with a Volt Switch and send in Freak. Tulip sends in Espathra to counter because she sees a KO with Shadow Ball, so we immediately swap to Dink. I use a Sucker Punch to easily take out the Espathra. Next on the chopping block is Gardevoir, and I decide to switch back to Freak. Since Gardevoir is poisoned, Freak does huge damage with Hex and takes it out with no problem. Lastly is Tulip's Ace Florges, and unfortunately Hex isn't enough to KO, so Freak goes down to a Moonblast, and we're forced to switch back into Dink to Sucker Punch and end the fight, earning ourselves the 7th badge. Next up is the final gym leader, Grusho, with his Ice types. He leads with Frostmoth and we send out Long John to set up Toxic Spikes again. I quickly swap to Chip and annihilate the Frostmoth with Incinerate. Next is Beartick, and I really don't want to get hit by a quad effective Earthquake, so I switch to Fruitcake to tank it. I use a low sweep before Beartick falls to poison damage. Next, Grusha sends out Satitan and we promptly swap to Muffin. Muffin gets hit by a powerful Ice Spinner and I stupidly keep him in to go for Brick Break before getting clobbered by another Ice Spinner. Amazingly, the game saves us and Muffin toughs it out. We swap to Jabba before Satitan goes down to poison. Grusha sends out his Ace Altaria and we set up Light Screen. I use Volt Switch and swap to Long John so I can badly poison the Altaria. I swap to Chip, Terastallize, and then Ancient Power plus Poison is enough to take out Altaria and secure our final gym badge. Our next mission is taking on Ortega and the Fairy Crew. He leads with Azumarill and we send out Jabba. We set up a Reflect and power through Azumarill with Thunderbolts. Guy did 10 damage to us and says, "Do you realize how outmatched you are?" What a donkey. Next up is Wigglytuff, and I figure Long John should have no problem taking it out. I start by setting up Toxic Spikes and chipping away using Poison Jab. Our attack gets lowered 4 stages, so I decide to switch back to Jabba. I use Reflect again, and then a few Thunderbolts take Wigglytuff out. Ortega sends in Darkspawn and gets poisoned on the switch. I then use Volt Switch so I can go back to Long John. A quick Poison Jab takes care of Darkspawn. Lastly is Ortega's Revavroom. My strategy for taking care of it is to simply Terastallize Long John and just overpower it with Poison Jabs. That means only one Team Star member to go now. Before we head over to Area, make a quick stop to fight the False Dragon Titan in order to wrap up the Path of Legends storyline. The first 2 phases were incredibly easy as we just bombard it with Thunderbolts and Sparks from Muffin and Jabba. The final phase was much trickier than I anticipated, but we got through it nonetheless. After Tatsugiri, I ran into some major issues. Area was my next fight, and no matter how much planning I did, I could not think of a very good way to beat her given the team that I possessed. I'm not even going to bore you with the details of the first fight, but this is how it ended. Oh my god, are you kidding me? No way. Oh my god, we don't even take it out. What a waste. Oh my god. We're still not going to take it out though. Unless we get a crit. Oh my god. No way we go 3 for 3, right? Yeah, okay. I don't know how we're going to beat Aerie, honestly. Yep, Long John tried his hardest to impress me, but still managed to fail after holding on to 1 HP twice in a row. I know it's a very anticlimactic finish, but I personally consider that a challenge failure. But just out of curiosity, I attempted this fight 8 more times and was still unable to beat Aerie. It was time for me to lick my wounds and admit defeat. Now I know that must be a disappointing ending for some of you as it was for me, but I don't know, I tried so many times to beat Aerie and I just couldn't, so I'm sure there's probably a way, probably a simple way out there that I could have beat this challenge, but I couldn't think of it. So definitely going to try and get better at nuzlocking because it's super fun. The main Pokemon games, when you have all the Pokemon at your disposal, are just way too easy now. So nuzlocking is a great way to add a challenge and add some extra rules for yourself, I guess. And I decided to let a Pokemon pack decide my team, and it did not go well. So maybe I'll try this again too with a different pack and a different team. But so far, Aerie has got our balls in her fist. So hopefully we can exact revenge at some point in the future. But anyways, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully.